Hey guys, it is Troy Francis. Welcome to The Dating Game with Troy Francis. Myself, I'm a dating coach. I've been a dating coach for the past decade. What that means is I've spent a decade going around the world with guys, coaching them in all different countries, across all different continents, helping them to get better outcomes with dating and with women. I've also helped a few women along the way as well. So I'm uniquely qualified to talk about the current dating situation, the quagmire of the current dating situation. I think yesterday, Matt Walsh of the Daily Wire compared the dating culture to Chernobyl, so it's pretty tough out there. But don't worry, because I'm here to help on this channel. So do subscribe to this channel, hit the notifications bell so that you know whenever a new video or a live stream is coming up. Contrary to popular belief, or not popular belief, but just some dude on the comments yesterday asked if this was a reactions channel. And no, it's not a reactions channel. I am doing reactions because reactions are very useful, because a lot of stuff happens, a lot of dumb stuff happens in the celebrity space and in the manosphere space that we can talk about and we can draw lessons from. But this isn't predominantly a interactions channel. This is a channel to help men and women to improve their dating lives, okay? Because, you know, it's pretty tough out there, as we've said. There's loads of guys who aren't getting laid at all. They're remaining virgins far too long, and there are a lot of women who are not very happy either, okay? Because they're not actually getting with the guys that they want or getting the outcomes that they want. So we are here to help at The Dating Game with Troy Francis. Anyway, with that being said, we've got a couple of spicy topics to talk to you about today. The first one is Cameron Diaz, who has recently opined that we should normalize couples sleeping in separate bedrooms and indeed in separate properties. So we're going to be talking about that. And then we're going to be talking about Dave Portnoy of Barstool Sports, who recently split up with his somewhat younger girlfriend. And we're going to be talking about why it is actually often a good thing for guys to dump their girlfriends. And we're going to be unpacking why that might be a little bit later on. But let's get into it. So let us talk now about Cameron Diaz and what she's had to say about the subject of basically, you know, kind of cohabitation and how actually maybe it's kind of better to be a little bit separate. So let's crack into it. This is a video from E! News.
We should normalize, like, separate bedrooms.
Thank you. Sharing is not always caring. Cameron Diaz is opening up about her.
Why did that other woman have to yell, "Thank you, thank you, thank you, Cameron"? Yeah, I don't know. Just go back a minute. Let's listen to that.
Not always caring. Cameron Diaz is opening up about her perspective on couples giving each other space. Literally, during the December 19th episode of Molly Sims and Amis Gormley's Lipstick on the Rim podcast, the actress, who will celebrate 9 years of marriage to husband Benji Madden in January, says this.
We should normalize, like, separate bedrooms.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. About it.
Thank you. Thank God somebody's finally said it. Thank you, Cameron.
Where you're like, I would just meet.
That's the to
By the
me.
way-
Like, I would literally, like, I have my house, you have yours. We have the family house in the middle. I will go and sleep in my room. You go sleep in your room. I'm fine.
But Cameron has a solution for maintaining intimacy with the father of her 3-year-old daughter, Radix.
And we have the bedroom in the middle that we can convene in for, you know,
This is
our
going to be a bad
relationship.
headline. She
says it very delicately. There's this is written out in text in the Telegraph, which we'll have a look at in a minute. But yeah, we can the bedroom in the middle where we can convene for our relations, which is a very very restrained way of putting it. She basically means bang.
And you should not.
I've already said it.
Yeah,
No.
she's already.
I've already said it.
actually.
No, I
will
will
tell
tell you
you-
something else before. But by the way, I don't
nothing
feel
wrong
that
with
way now because my husband is so wonderful.
While Cameron and
So she kind of goes like, oh yeah, I can't, by the way, everything that I just said, I don't mean that now because obviously my husband is so wonderful. It kind of sounded like a little bit too much too late. It kind of sounded like, oh, but Benji's great. I don't mean any of this about him. I just mean in general, we should normalize couples not sleeping in the same bedroom together.
the Good Charlotte rocker often keep their family life private. Benji has taken the time to gush about his wife on social media. In January, the 44-year-old wrote, "In love, inspired, happy, and grateful. 8 years married, side by side, and now a little one for us to guide. Let's do 80 more, and then forever." And
What a simp. I'm only joking. Look, it's Christmas. I would have to be a hard-hearted old Scrooge to not think that was heartwarming. That was quite a nice little tweet, wasn't it? It was quite a nice little message. Even I've got to admit that. So, he seems to be head over heels in love with Cameron. But is it the fact that they're sleeping in different rooms, or they might be sleeping in different rooms, that that's actually helping them to cement that bond?
And in August, he penned a heartfelt note for Cameron's 51st birthday, writing, "It's a very happy birthday to my beautiful wife, best friend, best partner in everything, ride or die, greatest mom to our little girl, Aveline wine boss, family chef."
Okay, well, maybe this is getting a little bit simpy now, because he's banging on about, like, oh my God, my queen, my beautiful wife, my best friend, my best partner in everything, right or die, oh my God. Maybe he's gushing a little bit here, but, whatever. I mean, that's not the main point of contention today.
Advisor, collaborator, and everything else. You do it all. So grateful to have our family, and I am one lucky man. I know that seems obvious, but it really is nice to say it out loud now and then when you're feeling it. I love you forever. Always yours. True love. Happy birthday, Cameron.
Yeah, I mean, he really lays it on thick there, doesn't he? There's no stone left unturned to really hammer home the point that he is deeply in love with Cameron Diaz. And look, that's very lovely for them. That's fantastic. But what about this issue about couples sleeping in the same bedroom together or not sleeping in the same bedroom together? I believe that they're absolutely right. I think Cameron is bang on the money here. I think that actually it should be made illegal for couples, particularly for married couples, to sleep in the same bedroom. And the reason is very simply this. Because if we made it illegal for married couples to sleep in the same bedroom, the divorce rate would plummet. All right, so we're always talking on these shows about divorce and, oh, it's so terrible because there's this 50% divorce rate and people aren't happy and blah, blah, blah. If we just put in this one simple measure, that divorce rate, I promise you, would exponentially fall pretty much overnight. Because a lot of what causes disharmony in marriage, a lot of what causes the boredom and the inevitable chipping away at the initial excitement, etc., is familiarity, okay? And if you got rid of that, or if you ameliorated that by stopping people from sleeping in the same bedrooms, there's no doubt at all that couples would stay together for longer. They'd probably enjoy it more. There'd be more of a spark. There'd be more excitement, etc., etc. So I think the camera's on the money here with this. Tell me what you think. If you are in the comments now, or if you're in the chat now, put a comment in the chat. Let me know what you think, and we can have a chat about it. I wanted to read to you the article in the Telegraph about this. I was gonna get this on screen, but it's behind a paywall. But let's have a look, because I can probably just read the salient points out to you. But yeah, it's interesting because this is not an entirely new thing. Helena Bonham Carter was quite famously an exponent of this when she was married to Tim Burton. She's married to the director, Tim Burton. They famously lived in, or ostensibly lived in, separate houses. And apparently that was, I mean, they split up in the end, so maybe it didn't work that well. But certainly they spoke highly of it at the time. So let's have a look at this Telegraph article, what it says. I can bring up the first bit on screen, so you've got like a visual aid. But, I mean, effectively, what this is basically saying, this kind of explains the whole thing, really. Hold on one second. Let me just pull this up. God, nearly Christmas, guys, isn't it? Is everyone excited? Everyone got wonderful plans? Oh my God. Okay, so here we go. Cameron Diaz, separate bedrooms or even houses are ideal for couples, but the actress admits she doesn't follow her own advice because her guitarist husband is so wonderful. Well, why bring it up then? Why bring it up on a bloody podcast if you don't actually do it? That seems a little bit odd. But anyway, there's a picture of the happy couple. So what this article says is couples sleeping in separate bedrooms should be considered perfectly normal, Cameron Diaz has said. And the secret to marital harmony may even lie in residing in separate houses, the Hollywood actress suggested. We should normalize separate bedrooms. To me, I have my house, you have yours, she told Lipstick on the Rim podcast, hosted by Molly Sims and Emise Gormley. Well, okay, fine, but, if you're Cameron Diaz, that's and you're a good Charlotte rocker like Benji Madden is, then that may be financially possible for you. For many people, unfortunately, it isn't. And one of the many negative effects of the pandemic a few years ago was people being forced to cohabitate in very small spaces together. And clearly, I mean, you don't need to be a relationship expert like me to predict that that is going to have a very negative impact on people's experience within those relationships. And sure enough, a lot of couples ended up splitting up, and there was all kinds of disharmony and everything else going on. So you need to have a bit of space, in my view. I mean, I wouldn't even keep it at separate houses. I keep it at separate states if I could, or separate countries. But there's a comment about snoring. So responding to a comment about partners who snore during the night, she added, "We have the family house in the middle. I will go and sleep in my room. You sleep in your room. I'm fine. And we have the bedroom in the middle that we can convene for our relations." She means getting jiggy with it, in the words of Will Smith. And then she says, "I don't mean that about my husband." Blah, blah, blah. They've got a daughter. Traditional supporters of separate bedrooms include the royal family. Well, we're British. We're too posh to, don't do any of that naughty stuff. As well as a quarter of Americans. And this is interesting. So 25% of Americans also have separate bedrooms, according to a recent survey. Gwyneth Paltrow, I mean, not unusual for Gwyneth Paltrow to pop up in this kind of conversation, is it? Described her arrangement to live apart from her husband, Brad Falchuk, whom she married in 2018, as ideal. While Helena Bonham Carter and her former partner Tim Burton were known to live in separate houses. Speaking to the Radio Times, Bonham Carter said the American filmmaker snoring was an element of the arrangement. "We have two houses knocked together because mine was too small. We see as much of each other as any couple, but our relationship is enhanced by knowing we have our personal space to retreat to," she said. "It's not enforced intimacy, okay? It's chosen, which is quite flattering, if you can afford it." So there's a few salient points there. So she says, and I think this is important, she says, our relationship is enhanced, okay? It's made better by knowing we have our personal space to go to. And I think that's really, really important. I mean, this is certainly, I don't know about you guys, I mean, this has been my experience in relationships. There's only really been a couple of times where I've actually ended up living with someone, and both of those times was a bit of a nightmare, to be honest. Now, that might be to do with my personality, because I'm quite avoidant and I like my own space and everything else. But I think for most people, the cracks start to show when you started to live together. Because, like, what is it? We meet somebody, they're kind of mysterious, right? They're kind of a bit sexy because we don't know much about it. We don't have too much knowledge of them. You see that beautiful woman and she's wearing a red dress across the bar, and you're like, oh, she's, and we conjure up these images of her. She's like, oh, she's this, she's that. She's like a Bond girl, blah, blah, blah. If you see her doing her washing and dropping her underwear on the floor and, and you're sharing a bathroom and all this kind of thing, it takes away the mystique. All right, for both parties, for men and for women. And look, I think it makes a hell of a lot of sense to actually, have separate living spaces. But like Helena Bonham Carter says, if you can afford it, I mean, this is a luxury of the rich, isn't it? I mean, this isn't for everybody. We can't all just go out there and say, hey, I'm just going to have two bedrooms I'm going to have two houses, or we're going to have wings each in this wonderful house together. It's not realistic, is it, for everybody? So it's one rule for one for the other, really. But let's see what else this says here. No less romantic. A 2017 survey for the National Sleep Foundation found as many as 25% of Americans chose to sleep in separate beds. Dr. Mia Krieger, a professor of medicine at Yale School of Medicine and author of The Principles and Practice of Sleep Medicine. And look, sleep, it's super, super, super important. It really is, for your health and for, just your well-being, your mental acuity and all of that. Told USA Today, for a lot of couples, sleeping apart can be the best thing for their relationship. There's no research that suggests that couples who sleep apart for the purpose of better sleep have any less of a romantic connection than the couples who share a bed. Yeah, okay, so, well, that's a little bit mealy-mouthed, isn't it? Because he's saying there's no there's no evidence that there's no research that suggests that they sleep apart have less romance. Well, maybe that it just hasn't been researched. I don't know. So doesn't seem irrefutable to me. But anyway, There isn't any research, and I was listening to a phone-in about this last night on LBC here in the UK, and people were talking about this. I was half asleep. It was in the middle of the night. People were phoning in about this issue, and it was getting people like really excised for some reason. You know, it seems there seems to be a lot of strong feelings on either side of this. I mean, I think for myself, there's a couple of experiences I could relate with regard to this. I mean, and by the way, Nikki says, thanks, Nikki, for tuning in. Love the idea of chosen intimacy as opposed to forced. So one problem that I see with this, is, okay, so you're living in the house and you've got the separate bedrooms, but then what if one partner kind of wants the snuggles one night and then the other partner doesn't, and then the other partner is then going to feel rejected? It feels like, and then you're in a situation where, and I've seen this term sleep divorce actually used in regard to this, where it's almost like you feel like you kind of have separated, but you're within the same house. I mean, I remember when my stepmother and my father started to sleep in different rooms. I think I'd left home by this point, but it was sort of at some point in my late teens, and suddenly they'd started to sleep in different rooms, and sadly, that was kind of the beginning of the end. I mean, it was probably a symptom of a greater malaise within the relationship. But on the one hand, if suddenly your partner's saying, "Oh, actually, you know what? I think maybe it's better if we sleep in separate rooms," that could be a bit of a kicker, really, because. So I was listening to. Who was it? Ian Payne, who's a really good DJ on LBC, a really good presenter on LBC, and he was talking about this last night. No, it wasn't actually. Sorry, it was Ben Kentish earlier on, and he was saying, he's a youngish guy. He's apparently lives with his partner, his girlfriend, and he was kind of saying, there is something romantic about that, isn't there? You guys, you sleep together, you fall asleep. You're holding her, you're holding each other, you fall asleep together. There is something nice about that. And if you just suddenly then forgo that in the relationship, that seems like a bit of a shame, doesn't it? It does seem like a bit of a shame, because even me, even Ebenezer Scrooge, Troy Francis, who's this kind of never ever Peter Pan like bachelor figure, and I'm not in a relationship and it's Christmas and all that kind of stuff. Even I, you like that side of it, right? You like that kind of closeness, that kind of intimacy. That's part of it, right? So it does seem a bit of a shame if you're in a bloody couple with somebody or married to somebody, and like you basically say, right, good night at the end of the day, and then that's it, and they go to their own quarters. But on the other hand, and I heard again at some point during my long and twisted night of semi-sleep last night, I heard somebody talking about the effects on sleep of actually having somebody else in the bed. And apparently every time that person moves, even if they move kind of fairly microscopically, that can pull you out of REM sleep. Okay? So REM sleep is, of course, when you dream, when you're in that deepest sleep, where you are most repaired, right? Where your body, you're literally rebuilding yourself. You're turning off everything. You're turning all the power off and recharging yourself effectively. If every time your partner moves or kind of rolls around or whatever, you're suddenly broken out of that, that's a really bad thing. And this person was saying that over time, the neurological effects of that can actually be quite disturbing. All right? Because if your sleep is being messed up every night for years or decades, which is kind of what can happen when you're sleeping next to somebody, you're getting a crap night's sleep. It's basically it's dropping your IQ. So when you look at it like that, you think, well, actually, maybe there is something in this. The biggest thing for me, right, and this is God's honest truth, is I think living together, I mean, never mind sleeping in the same bed, I mean, just living together, I think effectively kills a lot of relationships, right? It takes the romance out of a lot of relationships, because it's just you've got nowhere to hide. And I mean that both literally and metaphorically. You've got nowhere to hide when you are cohabitating with somebody, okay? You're in the same place. Now people say, oh, but it's fine because she'll be out at work during the day and you'll be doing that and blah, 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 which is true, but every single night you come back to the same place, all right? You're coming back to that same bedroom in most cases. And that can start to feel quite claustrophobic, I think, for people. And also, as well, as I say, the boring, the mundane, the quotidian, the crappy bits of relationships, like the cleaning up, who's going to do the washing up, who left the tube off the toothpaste, did you clean the toilet, all this kind of crap starts to come into it, and it causes arguments, it causes discontent, and it's just fundamentally not sexy, okay? Because, as I say, a lot of sex, a lot of sexual attraction is formed in the imagination, and it's formed in mystery, and it's formed in absence, okay? It's not formed in having that person there 24/7 and having to do the washing up with them, okay? That is not hot, all right? So... And unfortunately, there's a really, really good book called Practical Female Psychology by somebody called Franco. We'll do another show on it at some point because it's a very interesting read. But he talks about, there's a guy called Franco and there's some other authors as well. And they talk about what they call the betaization process, which is basically cohabitation a lot of the time is driven by women. Because women are like, oh, let's move in together, it'll be really nice. And the woman wants to feel, looked after and protected. And maybe, you guys are going to try for kids and all that kind of stuff. And it's the next obvious move, isn't it, right? It's like, right, we'll move in together. And women tend to be the drivers behind this a lot of the time. Because it seems really nice, doesn't it? Especially now, especially this time of year, Christmas outside. Everybody out there partying and carousing and you go home alone, you feel a little bit lonely, right? So it's nice at this time of the year, but at all times of the year, to have that other person there, that's what people aspire to. But what nobody really takes into account is what that's going to do to your relationship. And as I say, what it does is it takes away a lot of the mystery and it replaces it with this rather grim reality of like, oh shit, they're just another normal human being. And actually, I see her 24/7 for months and months and months out of the year. Now the sexiness just isn't quite the same. And this is, people's sex lives drop off after they've cohabitated for a while, after they've been married for a while. Resentments build. And often because the woman has kind of chained the guy in a sense. Because if you think of the guy as being, the guy should be this alpha kind of guy who's out there marauding and taking over the world and, on his mission and all that kind of stuff. And she has successfully persuaded him to give all of that up and come and live with her and go to IKEA at weekends. Then the guy becomes less attractive in her eyes over time. Because then it's like, well, what happened to the alpha Chad's warrior that I first met? Now you're just this browbeaten dude who does the washing up and takes the bins out on a Thursday. And women drive this. So it's this kind of ironic thing that you women will do, which is like you think you want this thing, and then you get the thing, which is the guy being there 24/7 and you guys living together. And then you don't want it anymore. And then you're like, oh, this guy's a cuck. And then you get rid of him and you go and shag the personal trainer from Equinox or whatever it is. So it's problematic. And so I think what Cameron Diaz is talking about here is an attempt to mitigate this. Now, as I said, Helena Bonham Carter and Tim Burton, the director, did this famously. They lived together. They lived together but separately. They were in separate wings of the house. And they still split up after a period of time. I don't know the exact reasons, but clearly this isn't a cure-all for everything. Even if you live separately, you can still get fed up with each other. But I did hear some interesting testimony yesterday on LBC. So this woman phoned in, because this is a station where people phone in and they talk about their experiences, their opinions, whatever. Talk radio. And this woman phoned in and she said, I was with my husband, I was with my or boyfriend or whatever. I was with him, we were living together for a number of years in a big house. And then we decided, you know what, let's just sell the house and then we'll buy two separate properties and we'll live kind of near to one another, but separately. And she said it was the best thing that they'd ever done. She said, listen, it's absolutely brilliant. And she said, look, we see each other when we want to see each other, and basically we've taken away all of the crappy bits of our relationship. So now we're not arguing about the dishwasher. We're not arguing about the washing. We're not arguing about who's cleaning the kitchen. All of that's been taken away. So all we've got left now is the good bits. And the good bits are what you want in the relationship, right? The good bits, is you meet up, you go to a cool place, you have sex, you have romantic times, blah, blah, blah. You're not weighed down by the domestic quotidian bollocks that kind of scuppers everybody else. So I think that there's a lot of merit in this, really. And I think, look, we talk a lot on these shows about, the divorce rate and the problems with modern marriage and all the rest of it. And I don't think this cohabitation thing is helping, put it that way. I think if cohabitation between married couples was made illegal, the divorce rate genuinely would fall significantly. So maybe that's something we need to think about. Maybe this is something we need to put into place. Maybe, US election, this could be like a top campaigning issue in order to really try and help things out. Because at the moment, as we saw in the show yesterday, everything's going the wrong way. I mean, the trad-cons might be standing there on the platform going, wife her up, marry her. Charlie Kirk may be standing there yelling at people to get married to any woman that you can grab off the streets. But people aren't doing it, and the people that are doing it, it's not lasting very long because most of them are ending up getting divorced. So this might be a sort of a middle ground of being like, okay, well, look, maybe the old thing of like, oh, okay, we'll just be in each other's faces 24/7. It actually doesn't work very well, and maybe we can accept that, but that doesn't mean you can't have a longer term bond with somebody. Okay, I have relationships with people who, they live in different countries and things. Now, I'm not an advocate for long term relationships either, and when I say relationships, in my case, they're extremely casual, so don't take that as read. I don't think you should get into something serious with somebody, but I like to have a bit of space, and if it's a couple of continents, even better. That's just me, but I think actually a lot of people share that to varying degrees. So yeah, it's a tough one, really. I can see why it would piss some people off because it seems anti-romantic, but on the other hand, counterintuitively, it could be the most romantic thing that you could do for your relationship. So Nikki, God bless her, has put a few comments in here. She said, it's all about compromises and communications, surely. Having separate rooms doesn't mean never actually sleeping together again. I like my space as I got older. A weekend boyfriend is perfect. Very hard to find, though. Yeah, I mean, well, it depends. I mean, I guess there are guys out there who want that. I mean, I personally, and I think as people get older as well, they get more set in their ways. And also maybe a bit more, just embittered by experience. I mean, I'm at an age now, nearly the big 5-0 guys, where, to be honest, the idea of cohabitating with somebody is not is not one that I really relish. It's not one that I really relish. It's kind of like something that I would sort of be very, very loath to get into. Unless it was absolutely, I'd have to be really, really, really sure about the person and about the situation. And I've seen this go wrong too many times as well, both with myself and with other people that I know. People get together for a period of time. There's too much closeness. There's too much familiarity, And then they're like, shit, actually, I'm not even in love with this person anymore. I don't even want to be here anymore. And that's a very, very bad outcome. So proceed with caution and, take on board what Cameron Diaz says here, because maybe she's got a point, right? I think she has. I think we should make it mandatory personally, but that's just me. Anyway, with that being said, unless anyone's got any other questions or comments on that, put them into the chat. We're going to move on to another topic now. This was actually going to be the main topic for the show today, and then I changed it because the Cameron Diaz thing was interesting. But basically, right, the Barstool Sports owner, Dave Portnoy, has split with his model girlfriend, Silvana Moika. I think that's probably pronounced wrongly, but I gave it a shot. And we want to find out the reasons why, and was he right to do this? And I'm going to react to a video by the Daily Wire commentator Brett Cooper in a moment, and she says that he was bang on, absolutely right to do this. I agree with her, so we're gonna get into that. So let's have a look now and see what happens. So Dave Portnoy, if you guys aren't aware, is a kind of bit of a firebrand kind of character. He's an interesting character. He runs this Barstool Sports company, which is a sports media outlet, basically. He's a social media figure. I'm not a huge sports fan, but I was aware of him through seeing him on different podcasts and stuff like that. He's kind of a charismatic, kind of interesting guy, entrepreneurial figure. Obviously made a hell of a lot of money through Barstool Sports. Apparently he sold Barstool Sports and he was going to go almost like retire. I mean, he's 46, but he was going to retire basically, and then now he's bought it back and he's pushing on with that and blah blah blah. Anyway, and he was also actually he was the subject of some hit pieces and things in the last couple of years as well, there was some sort of rather murky accusations coming to his way, which he refuted very forcibly and with and very convincingly. And I don't think that ever came to anything. But he's a very interesting character. And somebody who's not afraid of controversy, or who has certainly run into his fair share of controversy over time. Anyway, so Dave Portnoy was dating this model, Silvana Moika. So this is an article from our old favourite, the Mail Online. So let's have a look and see what it says. This will give you some context. So this came out 30th of November. So Dave Portnoy, the founder of Barstool Sports, has revealed the reasoning behind his split with long-term girlfriend Silvana Moika. She is Colombian, by the way. She's a model. She's hot. We'll probably see some pictures of her. Speculation that the couple had called it quits began to swirl last week after the model posted a TikTok of her crying, and Portnoy confirmed the end of their relationship on his BFF's podcast Wednesday. So this is on TikTok. Speaking to his co-hosts, TikTok star Josh Richards and Bry Chicken Fry, what a name, 46-year-old Portnoy opened up on the split, explaining that he felt he couldn't give Moika what she wanted. So he's 46 and she is 28. Okay? Bear that in mind because it's quite important. We were dating for 3 years, and I guess you get to a point where you think maybe there's a difference in what somebody wants and what the other person wants, and without going into too much detail, I just didn't think I could give Silvana kind of what she deserves, Portnoy explained. She's so beautiful, she's funny, she's smart, she's all these things. It's probably a me issue because I'm old and single at this point, but I don't think I'm the guy that she is looking for and is going to be able to provide her with what she needs down the road. It's like, what are you doing? Okay. And that's a picture of them there. Underneath, you can see she's very beautiful. He's looking pretty cool here as well. And actually, I've got to say, actually reading out those paragraphs, it kind of made me almost emotional in a way, because this is so similar to what happened with me and my ex-girlfriend. And in fact, the ages are very similar. I was... about this. We were about the same ages as this, about 46, 28. That kind of those kind of ages when we broke up. And what he's saying here is basically exactly the same thought process that was going through my mind at the time of that split. So this is why I think this story has kind of interested me. So he's, to repeat, he goes, she's so beautiful, she's funny, she's smart, she's all these things. It's probably a me issue because I'm old and single at this point, but I don't think I'm the guy that she's looking for and is going to be able to provide her with what she needs down the road. It's like, what are you doing? Okay, again, that's exactly how I felt. We're going to look a little bit more into this, and we're going to watch this Brett Cooper video, which is going to give us some more insight into what exactly he means. But yeah, man, it's tough. I really vibe with what he's saying. But I think he probably did the right thing. I'm going to explain why. 28-year-old Moika and Portnoy have been dating since around March 21, which is actually, just after the pandemic, isn't it? They'd regularly been seen together at sporting events. Richards chimed in. So the co-host chimes in and says, well, it becomes a little unfair for her at that point, to which Dave replied, you're stealing her youth. Okay, you're stealing her youth. Actually, that's a video above, isn't it? So look, you can see... actually, I wonder if we can... can we get some volume on this? Oh, hang on a minute. Let's see. Oh, damn. Oh, no!
We were dating for 3 years, and I guess you get to a point where you think maybe there's a difference in what somebody wants versus what the other person wants.
We can listen.
And without going into too detail, I just didn't think I could give Silvana kind of what she deserves, and I'm sure we'll get, and it's easy to say now, but it's so raw and fresh, but like she's so beautiful, she's funny, she's smart, she's all these things. It's probably a me issue or whatever because I'm old and single at this point, and I'm sure she's gonna be great, but if I don't think I'm the guy that she's looking for is going to be able to provide her what she needs down the road, like 3 years at my age, at her age, it's like, what are you doing? And that was something that
well, it becomes a little like unfair for her at that point too, right?
You're stealing her youth.
The guy, the co-host is very young, isn't he? It's kind of interesting. But yeah, I mean, what Dave is saying here, I think he's done the right thing. I think he's absolutely right. And as I say, I've got previous on this. I've got experience of this because I'm an older guy. I have dated women in their 20s. I dated a woman in her 20s of a similar, exactly the same age as they are now. So I know exactly where he's coming from with this. So it's really fascinating for me.
A little time from her. Yeah. Does she just want to like have kids and stuff?
I don't want to go too personal on it.
So that's interesting, right? Because the woman says, did she want to have kids and stuff? And Dave says, well, I don't want to get too personal, which is fine. You know, there's no we can't expect him. You know, he's not going to go into all the murky details, but. The kids thing, I think, is really the key issue with this stuff, okay? If you're a guy and you're with a woman, whether there's a big age gap or not, you know, in my case, there was an age gap. Obviously, in Dave Portnoy's case, there was a considerable age gap as well. But even if you guys were the same age, then it's going to be problematic if you're not on the same route together, right? Do you want kids, okay? If she wants kids and she's 28 and you're on the fence or you don't want kids and you guys are together, this is why he's saying he's stealing her youth. Okay, because she has that period of fertility, okay? And 28, you know, it's by no means the end of the road, but, you know, it is a point in your life at which you want to start thinking seriously about this stuff and thinking, well, am I with the guy who's going to be the best person to provide this? Now, Dave is 46 at this point. He describes himself as old and single, and it sounds to me, and I think he's going to talk a little bit more about it in a second, it sounds to me like he's very much on the fence about having kids or probably doesn't want to, okay? And I think that probably, although he doesn't want to go into all of the details here, I think that probably is at the root of the issue. Okay, let's see what he says anyway.
Because I don't want to put words in her mouth or anything. Yeah. I'll just say it was a conversation that wasn't the first time her and I had that conversation. So it wasn't like out of left field, but it's still hard because it's hard for me. I saw her. I am still kind of seeing what she says. She's like, it sucks. You lose your best friend and all, and you know, somebody you want to.
I mean, it's incredibly painful, not only to have to deal with this situation, but also to sort of have to deal with this situation as such a public figure. You know, I mean, I've got some very, very. I mean, I'm not a public figure in the way that either of these two are. I've got some very small experience of this, and actually, at the time when I was splitting up with my ex, we had some interference with people online as well who were getting in there and doing weird stuff and trying to make things even worse, which was not great. But to be a public figure and then sort of, although you've estranged from your ex, you know, seeing what they're saying in the media and stuff like that is incredibly difficult. And I mean, to Dave's credit, you know, he's he's on a show, but I mean, he's kind of holding it together here. Yeah, difficult stuff, man.
Spend the rest of your life with, and overnight, yeah, I lost like my best friend as well. I still love her and am very concerned what happens with her. But it's I don't know. It felt like.
It's not fun.
I knew eventually, I thought a breakup was going to happen. So to let days continue to go by.
It's not fair to either of you guys.
No, not fair at all.
We were dating for 3 years.
Yeah, okay. So he says that he thought a breakup was going to happen, and to really sort of keep it rolling for too much longer was not the right thing to do. Again, I can really empathize with what he's saying here. So, I mean, there were times, I mean, I remember being with my ex, and I think on some level, we both knew that this was going to happen. You know, I remember, you know, we were in bed one night and we were talking, and, you know, I told her I loved her, and she said, I love you too. And she said, no, I really love you, but I think we have an expiry date. And of course, she was absolutely right, because, you know, what she meant was we kind of want different things in life. Crudely, she wanted to have kids and have a family, and I was very much on the fence about it, or I didn't want those things. You know, I wanted to be this perpetual bachelor, and she sort of knew that, and I sort of knew that, and you're in this weird situation because, like he said, you know, you're best friends. You're with somebody for like 3 years. 3 years is... I mean, okay, look, I mean, it's in the big scheme of things, maybe it's not that long, but it's believe me, it's enough, okay? You've got a very strong emotional bond with somebody. You've got a very, very strong, you know, you've built this thing with that person. You love them. You care about them. They're your best friend. They're your, you know, but there's this irreconcilable difference, and particularly as an older guy, right? Because then there's a degree of there's a degree of responsibility as well, isn't there? You know, there's a degree of, look, if I'm not going to be able to do this thing that she wants to do, which I think is what Dave is talking about here, if I'm not really the right guy for her in the longer term, I have to let her go, okay? I have to end this. Because it's going to end in some way at some point anyway. But it's incumbent upon the dude, unfortunately, to bring this to a close. And it's such an important issue, because whether she has kids or not, it's not something you can just brush over. You know, it's not something that you can like, oh well, you know, whatever. Unless she's casual about it. If she's not, you know, bothered about that, then that's different. But if that's kind of what she wants, and you're on the fence, or you kind of don't really want that, but you're kind of just stringing her along because you like being with her and everything, it's so tough. And you can really see the difficulty that Dave and Silvana must have had with this situation, you know, because I'm sure they were massively in love. I'm sure there's a wonderful, wonderful relationship there. And you know, and now it's screwed, right? But for the right reasons, okay. Yeah, it's interesting stuff. Nikki says, does this mean that you should only date in your age range then? No, absolutely not. God, I'll die on that hill. Does it mean you should only... well, I think it depends how old you are. I mean, I suppose you could argue, for me, if I was dating... If you say my age range, what does that even mean? If you're saying basically if I was dating women the same age as me, then... pretty much, really, they're not really of childbearing years anymore. You know, they're kind of, they would be past that stage. So I suppose you could say at this point in my life, yes, if I was dating women who were exactly the same age as me, or maybe a year either way, I wouldn't run into this issue. Yes, but when I was 28. You know, I didn't feel markedly different when I was 28, but if I'd have been dating girls who were 28, I would have come into exactly the same issue as this. And when I was 27 or 25 or whatever, right? So, I think it depends. I mean, because I've kind of aged out of the you know, the fertility window myself, or not, well, probably not myself, but you know, I've sort of, if I think of my female compatriots as now probably, you know, really being older than childbearing age, then yeah, you could make that argument, but I don't think that really holds for when I was younger, and I probably still didn't want to really commit in this way. George Bruno says, sometimes I wonder if men and women really suit each other. Perhaps they should just live next door and visit each other now and then. Catherine Hepburn. Yes, good to see you, George. I've heard that quote before, and I think she's got a point, really. I think she has kind of got a good point, really. It's tricky stuff, man. It's tricky stuff. Brian B says powerful. Yeah, so let's it is powerful. So let's now have a look at a video that Brett Cooper did about this on her YouTube channel, the comment section with Brett Cooper. So Brett is part of the Daily Wire crowd, along with Matt Walsh and these other guys. I actually quite like Brett. I think she's quite cool. I quite like Matt Walsh as well. I mean, I don't agree with half the stuff Matt Walsh says, to be honest, you know, but he's quite a good, I mean, I quite like him. I do agree with some of his points. I don't agree with a lot of the cuck-servitive stuff, but about marriage, but I certainly agree with some of his stuff. Anyway, so I quite like Brett. She's quite cool. But let's see what she has to say about this. And I actually tweeted, and she reposted me on Twitter, which was very nice. Thank you, Brett, if you're watching. Saying that I agree with this because I personally felt someone invested in this topic. So let's see what she has to say about this.
Welcome back to the comments section. I'm Brett Cooper. So we've talked about Dave Portnoy and Barstool a lot, but we have not discussed Dave Portnoy's personal life. And boy, do we have some relationship tea for you today. There really hasn't been a need to discuss Dave Portnoy's personal life. I'm not really interested in his personal life.
I think we should have that conversation.
But now the entire internet seems to be interested in it. So obviously now I am as well. And I promise, as always, there will be a meaningful reason for why we're discussing some celebrity relationship drama. So just stick with me. Before we dive into it though, make sure that you like this video, subscribe to this channel if you have not already, and ring that notification bell so that you never miss a comment section or off the clock episode. All right, so the news is Dave Portnoy and his girlfriend of 3 years, Silvana, have broken up.
What?
Tears, mayhem, chaos was all over TikTok for 5 days. It still is, to be honest. They were basically social media royalty at this point. Like, everybody loved them. Sylvana introduced Dave to a whole new female audience. Women started to love him when before they could not.
Yeah, she's got that Colombiana look, hasn't she? She's very attractive. She's very good looking.
Stand him or Barstool. He made her even funnier. It seemed like a great match. They always posted videos together. Here are some of them if you have not seen them together.
Pink, 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 girls, 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 glitter, 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 swirls, 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 together forever. We're Linda and Heather, best friends.
You see?
I mean, I don't know what you guys think about that. I mean, it's quite cute, isn't it, in a way, but it's sort of cringe as well. This is the thing. Again, look, I mean, I'm not like multimillionaire Barstool owner Dave Portnoy, but I am a guy in his 40s, and I do, tend to date women in their 20s, and I kind of empathise a little bit with him, because you kind of get dragged into this stuff. Not that I've done any TikTok videos like that, but it's kind of one of the refreshing things. We need to do a proper show about age gap relationships and all that stuff, but one of the refreshing things about it is it does kind of enliven you somewhat, and it brings out your youth. I don't say brings back your youth, because I think you can be kind of young at heart and stuff, but it sort of brings your youthful vitality to the fore when you're dealing with somebody who is younger than you. But it can also drag you into doing some fairly cringy stuff like that. And we've got a friend, this guy that I know through a friend who was also dating, he's in his 40s, was also dating this Colombian girl, and they did this TikTok. They got this TikTok channel together, and they got millions and millions of views on these videos. And it's this kind of... older sort of silver fox kind of American dude doing all these like crazy TikTok dances with his young Colombiana girlfriend, and it's kind of it's this weird like balance between being quite sweet and quite cute, and like just a bit like, oh dude, Jesus. So if you ever catch me doing TikTok videos like that, feel free to flame me in the comments, because it's I don't know if it's good look or not really. Anyway, let's see what else Brett has to say.
See what I mean? That she introduced Dave to an audience, because Dave Portnoy would have never been caught dead making a video where he was shaking his butt.
Well, probably not a bad thing, to be honest.
On TikTok with a chick to that.
No, don't like that.
What was that from? It's like Sophia the First, I think is where the sound is from. I have no idea.
We're Linda and Heather, best friends.
I'm telling you, open him up to the girls on TikTok. Here's another one.
Yes, and that's exactly what you need to show her.
I tell her every single day, if you want to go there, I'll go there with you. Otherwise, shut up.
She don't want to do it. She don't want to do it because she know you going to scrub the ground with her ass.
I'm going to mop the floor with that.
I mean, people were obsessed.
And by the way, I mean, look, again, like, I think we should do another show where we talk about age gap dating and stuff like this, because it's a big topic in itself. But they look pretty cute together, don't they? They look pretty cute together. He's 46, she's 28. So what difference is that? Come on, somebody who can do some maths, tell me in the comments. But there's quite a big age gap difference there. But they look quite cute, don't they? They're having a good time. It works. It's nice. I mean, I don't know whether he got a lot of flack for dating her for the age gap. Yeah, there's an 18-year difference. So again, it's exact. Sorry, my mental arithmetic terrible. I can't do it live when I'm trying to concentrate on this other stuff. But it's exactly the same age difference that I had with my ex. Okay, now there would be people who would look at that and go, "Well, he's 46 and he's it's predatory and he's manipulative and all this kind of stuff." But I don't know, guys. I mean, to me, it looks like they're having a pretty good time, doesn't it? It's quite cute, really. I think there can be a very nice interplay between a dude who's a little bit older and a younger woman. I don't think it's. I think it's incredibly offensive, actually, to imply that there is some sort of predatory undertone to these things. I mean, I'm not saying there can't be. I mean, obviously, in some cases, doubtless there is. But I think for the most part, I think it's about your vibe and how you get on with that person, okay? And your energy together. And looking at these TikToks, their energy together, it's pretty damn good. My energy with my ex, very good. That's why we were so intensely into each other for that period of time. I mean, well, I certainly was, because it was, although in many ways we were quite different as people, like, we were just kind of different. We had different interests. She was into Drake. I was into Depeche Mode. I mean, like, you're going to have these sort of slightly different outlook, just sort of different kinds of backgrounds and all this kind of stuff. But for some reason, we just got on really well. you know? And there's this indefinable thing with relationships where it's not about like, oh, we've got all these things in common or we do all these things together. It's like the energy just matches somehow, okay? And it seems like that's the case with these guys. So again, you know, the age difference thing I think it's actually quite offensive when people are so down on this stuff, when actually clearly, you know, it can work very well. But anyway,
with these TikToks, I think earlier this year was when they did like a big long trip. They went to Italy. They were traveling together. There was so much content that came out of that. Girls loved me.
I mean, that looks nice, doesn't it?
Even more after that. I mean, seriously, I think that this was a real
I was just in Italy with an Instagram influencer, actually. We were in Milan, which was quite cool.
Relationship, but I also could be convinced that it was a PR relationship purely because of how many fans Dave got from this. I mean, like between Silvana and him coming out as a Swiftie.
You're a Swiftie, right?
Oh, yeah. I had her back in the whole Kanye thing.
The girls now love Dave Portnoy. And I mean,
what does it really mean to be a Swiftie? I mean, I quite like some Taylor Swift songs. I think Taylor Swift is quite attractive. I think she's very talented as a songwriter. I don't think she's like the greatest performer on the planet. I think some of her songwriting is quite good. Am I a Swiftie? Maybe I am. Do I get lots of popularity on TikTok now? I don't know. I mean, how do you qualify? How do you actually become a Swiftie? I don't know.
In general, it just seemed like a solid relationship. They had just moved in together in Dave's new Miami house, but that did not last.
Looks like a nice pad, doesn't it?
Last long, because over Thanksgiving week, she posted this.
You need to be okay with being bad to start, because sucking is the first step to being So
she doesn't say anything and she doesn't write anything on the video, but her caption for it is, imagine you buy these for somebody and then you get broken up with. And it's just like a bunch of lovey-dovey cards. So.
Oh, Jesus. Oh, man. That's quite sad, isn't it? Breakups are just the worst. They really are. And you can see her eyes. You can see she's been crying. Oh man, and this is the thing, you know, like guys are like, oh yeah, hot girls, you know, it doesn't matter. They've got no problems. They're not a care in the world. You know, they've won the dating game and everything like that. And there is some truth to that. I mean, they get access that the average guy could never ever dream of having. But Jesus Christ, man, this sucks, doesn't it? This is not good. It's not good.
Obviously, it is about Dave. That is how the internet found out that they had broken up. And initially, all of the commenters were on her side, which is classic girl code. Nobody's surprised about that. That video got like 4 million views. Everybody was coming to her defense. One person said, you are a queen. This is your Sophia Richie post-Scott era. You will shine. You are beautiful. And
Jesus, it's so cringe, isn't it? Your era, your Sophia Richie post-Scott era. I mean, just... The word queen is cringe, and then the word era is also cringe, and then actually you will shine is cringe as well. It's kind of all it's all kind of cringe, isn't it? Really.
Unkind. Somebody else said, well, I'm definitely on this side of the divorce. Somebody else said, you are the only reason I gave him a redemption arc. You deserve the world. His loss. You are a literal.
I gave him a redemption arc. Well, thank you very much, Willow Crawford. I'm sure he appreciates the redemption arc that you gave him. I mean, how do you give someone a fucking redemption arc? What does that even mean? Jesus Christ, you GZ people. I don't know, man. I rescind my Swiftie card.
Gem. Again, she made women like Dave Portnoy. Another one, I'm so sorry that you were hurting. He never deserved you, Sylvs. And then videos like this quickly started popping up.
I don't know anything about Dave Portnoy and Silvana's relationship, but tell me why 100% she was right and like we ride it on for Silvana. Dave Portnoy just has that energy where like I don't even need to know why he broke up with her.
They turned on him so fast.
He threw away a beautiful, perfect, amazing, stunning, smart woman and now he's what? And I just love that all of the girlies of TikTok feel this way and like no matter what happened, no matter what Silvana did, even though we know she didn't do anything, like it's justified. We will take her side no matter what because
oh Jesus Christ. I mean, like without turning this into some big political issue, I mean that is it's a very frighteningly totalitarian view of this, isn't it? I don't care what he did. I don't want to hear any of the evidence. I don't care. We don't even care. He's guilty. I mean, it's all. This is why Pearl wears those T-shirts that she wears, saying women shouldn't vote, because it Can you imagine if she ran the country? It would just be this tyrannical authoritarian nightmare. You know, there'd be no due process at all. It'd be like, no, we don't care. We don't give a damn about what Dave Portnoy did. He's wrong. Send him to the tower. Chop off his head.
She's right.
This video just annoys me. Just in general, the whole thing, the whole girl code, she is right no matter what. Oh my God, write it, done, manifesting, whatever. I do not care. I do not care. But these videos were popping up all over the place. But then, about a week later, Dave went on the BFFs pod, which is his own podcast, and he opened up about it, and people started to change their minds very quickly. It was just an interesting turn of events. Watch this.
We were dating for 3 years, and I guess you get to a...
This is what we just saw, isn't it?
Point where you think maybe there's a difference in what somebody wants versus what the other person wants. I don't think I'm the guy that she's looking for is going to be able to provide her what she needs.
You can see a sort of sadness in his eyes, can't you? I think. I mean, I don't think I'm imagining that. I think there's... Yeah, I think he's holding this together well, but I think you can see the pain that this has caused him.
Down the road, like 3 years at my age, at her age, it's like, what are you doing?
I mean, this is like a new side of Dave Portnoy. Again, everything about this relationship, in addition to Taylor Swift and him becoming a Swiftie, has made him so tender. And it really is precious. Like, I also became more of a fan of him because of this content. And he's just being very genuine in this whole thing.
I knew eventually, I thought a breakup was going to happen. So to let days continue to go by...
It's not fair to either of you guys.
I mean, the whole thing just seems very mature, at least what we can see so far. And the general consensus and the assumption is that, like Bree said, Silvana wants marriage and kids. And at 46 years old, and as a divorcee, that's probably not what Dave wants. That's not how he envisions his future. And in fact, he's already said multiple times that that is not a priority for him. Watch this.
But you could be okay not having kids too.
Yeah. I'm not sitting there being like, damn, I'm fucked if I don't have kids. Yes.
Right.
So for what it's worth, I would co-sign that really. If somebody asked me that question, I would say the same thing. I'm not sitting there thinking, oh, I'm fucked if I don't have kids. That's kind of my take on this. I mean, it seems like I don't know anything about, I don't know a huge amount about Dave Portnoy. Obviously, I don't know him personally, etc., etc. But it seems like, reading between the lines, he's just a guy who similar age to me, just isn't really that bothered. He's a bachelor. He's obviously very driven. He's got his company. Brett starts talking in a minute about how he's gone back to, he's bought the company back and he's working to build that again. And it just seems like the family and the kids thing doesn't seem to be his defining drive. And that's fine. And this is why, arguably, he did the right thing as far as Silvana is concerned. And this is the argument that Brett starts to make.
Right. And you could be okay with retiring and not having kids? I'm curious about what the later half of my life looks like when I stop this. Like,
yeah, right.
What do I do with that energy? Can I relax on a beach? Can I chill?
I think I can. People vote.
I think I can, man, to be honest. I mean, I don't think there's any problem. I don't think there's any problem with relaxing on a beach, to be honest. I think that sounds absolutely great to me, man.
Always said they don't think I can, but I think I can.
And it's interesting that he said this on this podcast because for a while, he basically did do that. He sold Barstool. He was essentially retired. He dated Silvana. They traveled around the world. We're hanging out in Italy. He bought a house in Nantucket that was like...
Damn. It's funny, isn't it? Because the tradcons would say, yeah, but he didn't have offspring, so his life is pointless. Oh, he's a broken man. He's wasted his life. What about his genetic legacy? Looks to me like he's having a pretty damn good time. Traveling around Italy with his beautiful Colombian 28-year-old stunning girlfriend, these houses, this wonderful life. It all looks pretty good to me, but I mean, I'm just a degenerate bachelor, so what do I know?
$50 million, bought a house in Miami, has been laying by the beach. But then he purchased Barstool again and is now working harder than ever. Maybe he can't actually sit by.
It'd be interesting. I mean, look, this is complete speculation. As I say, I don't know the guy. I don't know a lot about him. I wonder if he is somewhat of a workaholic. It seems like he's a very driven man from what I do know about him. And I think that's good. I think people who are quite addictive and very driven in whatever they're passionate about, I think there's something fascinating about that. And I would really love actually to know a bit more about this story, to really know what had happened underneath the surface, because it seems to me like maybe, he's just not the settling down type. He's like, no, shit, man, my mission is more important. I'm building Barstool. I'm going to take over the damn world, right? That for me, that's what I want to do. I'm not going to play happy families. Silvana, I love her. She's fucking great. But that some other guy is better served to what she wants, because I want this, and it's so much bigger than that.
by the beach. Maybe he's realized that what is actually fulfilling to him is work, and he doesn't have kids. Now he's 46 years old. I have no idea. It's just, a lot of this makes sense. Now, immediately after he said all of that on the podcast, people started praising him for cutting her loose, which shocked me because you rarely see people online, especially women, being supportive of a man during a breakup. It's even more rare when he is the one who has done the dumping. Like I said, girl code, that never happens. But look at all these comments. One woman said, I applaud you. Sounds like you made a very mature and respectful decision. I wish the men I've known could achieve this level of maturity. Like, there is some time warp happening where women online are saying that Dave Portnoy is mature. I'm not saying I agree when they have not called him mature, because I do like Dave Portnoy, but there's a shift that has happened. Another person said, I can appreciate Dave for doing this in the best interest of Sylv. My sister's ex let her on for 8 years. Def stole her youth. All the best to Dave and Sylv. And I truly...
Yeah, and look, I think that they're absolutely right to have this change of opinion. And I think that last comment in particular, you know, again, it's very sad. The whole thing is just very, very sad. And maybe I'm getting a little bit emotional, guys, because it's nearly Christmas, and you know, you guys are going to be having a wonderful time with sherry and wine together and cuddling your loved ones, and I'm going to be sitting alone in my lonely garret making up content for the dating show with Troy Francis, or the dating game with Troy Francis. But, you know, I think that they're absolutely bang on with this. I think he was right, okay? You know, I can appreciate Dave for doing this in the best interest for Sylv. My sister's ex led her on for 8 years, definitely stole her youth. Oh, man. It's just, it's painful to think about this, really, because of my own personal experience, and I can see it from both sides, because you don't get together with somebody and think, right, I'm going to steal their youth, ha 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 ha, you know, in this kind of evil way. You meet somebody, and you have an amazing time with them, and you fall in love. Is basically what happens. You know, you create, you have this immense emotional bond with this person, and you have a fucking amazing time together. But then the brutal reality of life then comes into play, which is like, okay, but where is this going? And unfortunately, or not unfortunately, you know, there are some guys, maybe Dave Portnoy's one of them, maybe I'm one of them, there are others out there who they're just not, they're not motivated by the family thing, okay? It's not their primary focus, okay? And yet, but you've fallen in love with this amazing, beautiful, wonderful woman who is your best friend, and you feel like she's your soulmate and all the rest of it. But you can't square that circle, you know? There's no, it's a Gordian knot. There's no equitable solution to this, right? Somebody has to, it's a zero-sum game, right? Which means that in the end, you have to do what Dave Portnoy did, which is you have to let them go. As hard as that is. And I remember my ex, you know, saying to me one time, if you don't want what I want, you have to let me go. You know, and that was a while before we split up. And then obviously things move on, and you kind of, it's so tough, right? Because you're in this, you're in love, right? And there's an element of denial because you don't want, neither of you really want to face the truth, which is, we can't be together. You know, if it was this easy, like Matt Walsh style, oh well, you know, we don't have the same values, so therefore I'm, you know, it's not as easy as that when you're intertwined with somebody. It really isn't. But in the end, you have to do the thing that's right, and it seems like Dave did that.
For 8 years, Def stole her youth. All the best to Dave and Sylv. And I truly think that is one of the most evil things that a man can do. Like stringing along a girl who loves him when he doesn't know whether he wants to marry her or doesn't even know if he wants to get married at all, knowing that is what she wants, and wasting her childbearing years. Again, evil. It is incredibly selfish. And
well, okay. Is it evil? I think it's evil. I think it's evil if it goes on for too long, and he's knowingly doing it. Now, whether 3 years is too long or not is a point of contention. I think Brett gives him a pass for 3 years. I was with my ex for about 3 years, so I guess I get a pass too. I think if you're with somebody for like 10 years, and then after 10 years you say to them, hey, listen, actually, sorry, I don't want any of that family and kids stuff, then I think that is, I'm not sure if I'd use the term evil, but I think it is certainly not the right thing to have done. It's reprehensible. But there is a distinction, I think, in terms of how long you allow it to go on for, because he probably didn't, neither of them probably went into the relationship thinking, right, this is going to be a long-term relationship lasting for multiple years. Probably. I mean, I'm guessing. They probably just, got together, hooked up, had great sex, and thought, yeah, we enjoy hanging out. And then it kind of progressed from there. That's generally how these things go. So, it's hard to put in that firm boundary at the beginning because you're kind of getting to know each other. You're feeling each other out in more ways than one.
And incredibly evil. Somebody else said, another woman said, wow, Dave, this is very mature of you. It's hard, but you are awesome and we love you. Another woman, I love Dave for being true to himself and Silvana. The greatest gift a woman gives a man is her youth. Dave is man enough to know this. All of these are
Yeah, I don't entirely disagree with that. The greatest gift a woman gives to a man is her youth. There's some truth in that. Again, there's a kind of a sadness, there's a kind of a pathos to this story, guys, that's kind of getting to me a little bit. Maybe you can tell. As I say, maybe it's the Christmas sentimentality, the Christmas sherry, the blue lighting. But yeah, I think there is something to be said for that. She gives him the gift of her youth. And then if the guy squanders that, like Brett said, and he's with her for 8 years and then kicks her to the curb, I mean, that's a terrible thing. Yeah.
Fantastic points. Like, seriously, as I was scrolling through all of these, not just on the video that he posted and that his podcast posted, but just from people reacting to it and analyzing it, they were all supportive of him from women, which truly shocked me. And I've talked about this in 2 episodes this year. I think one was just a couple months ago and then one was over the summer. If you're in a relationship and you know that you are not going down the same path, for God's sake, break up and cut each other loose. Because like I said, it is evil to waste people's time. Have respect for yourself and your partner and just move on. I know it sucks. You might love
it does suck.
Each other, but move on. Truly, sometimes the best thing you can do is just break up. Like you guys need to break up with your crusty old pajamas and get...
Oh, look at that link. Look at that segue. She is so professional, isn't she? This is why she gets paid the big bucks. Let's see if we can skip on a bit.
Context, and he said that yes, the breakup did happen over Thanksgiving. Both of their families were there, which made a lot of people angry, saying that's terrible timing, but also it did make sense. Listen to what he said.
You want to talk about timing. People are like, how could you do it? Her parents were...
It's so mental, isn't it? How people... I haven't really... I mean, as I said, I'm in no way as high profile as these people at all, but I do go on the internet, and I haven't really had the balls, not for a long time, to really talk directly about stuff that's actually happened with... I mean, I kind of will allude to things, but I kind of try and make it very carefully, like hiding people's identities and all of this kind of stuff. And it's kind of mad that we live in this world... And I'm not just thinking of Dave Portnoy here. There's other influencers I could name. If you look at Melina and Destiny, for example. I mean, where they're actually on streams talking about what is happening very currently with another human being who's probably going to be watching those streams. It's just in a very public forum, and then there's people commenting on it. It's just such a crazy world that we live in. But there it is. That's the social media circus for you.
Over the house, my parents were over that. It was. You
can't really plan a breakup.
You couldn't. There's never a good time.
Yeah, you can't plan that.
If you don't,
never a good time.
Yeah, it's like what?
That sounds like an extremely bad time, though. If both parents are there,
Josh is like
awful. Yeah. But I mean, if you wait till after Thanksgiving, then guess what? Christmas is right there. So you're like, let's go through Christmas, and then New Year's is right there.
And it's kind of weird if you know it's going to happen.
Again, if you know it's going to happen, please just do it.
Yeah, it's a good point. There is no good time for a breakup. A breakup always sucks. All right, whether it's her birthday, whether it's then you get into January, and then it's nearly Valentine's Day, and then it's spring, and then it's like, we were going to go away in the summer. I mean, there's always going to be a fucking reason. I mean, yes, Thanksgiving with the family is going to be tricky for various reasons, but on the other hand, you've got to take that view. If you're going to end something, you've got to take that view. Okay, look, there's no good time for this. I'm just going to have to drop the bomb. A friend of mine used to say, rip the Band-Aid off the... a friend of mine used to say, shoot the puppy, okay, which is an even worse analogy, but it's basically like, look, the puppy's really cute, it's looking at you with those big eyes. If you're going to do it, you've got to just do it, okay? Shoot the puppy. And that seems to be what he did. So Thanksgiving, I mean, it must have been kind of awkward in the house afterwards, though, Jesus.
Stop wasting each other's time. So again, I think Dave did the right thing. But somebody commented and said, this feels like the parents were bringing up getting married and having kids, and he snapped or something. The girl who posted the video said, good point, that could definitely be possible. And the fact that they've been together a while and all the family was there. Somebody else said, so everybody was there for Turkey Day. They discussed the future. Dave gets mad and everybody gangs up on him. He breaks up with Sylv and now is blah, 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 blah. He's single. He's talking about it. It all makes sense. If the family was there, if they were talking about it, he realized, oh my God, this is getting real. I can't do this. I can't lie to her anymore. Like, I can't have her having these expectations about our future. Gotta cut it loose. It's not abnormal. This is not some crazy thing.
Especially, again, I'm speculating. I mean, but if she's from a Colombian heritage, you know, maybe her family's Hispanic. I mean, it's quite a traditional sort of culture. They're going to have that expectation, and that just makes as the guy, if you're like, oh, shit, this is just a route that I'm now on this route, and I didn't actually want to be on this route, and maybe it's my fault. You know, maybe it is my fault because I probably should have realised or should have thought before this point that actually, yeah, she wants these things, and maybe I don't, but nevertheless, now I'm where I am, and shit, and that pressure of not just her, but also the other people having those expectations, it does, again, terribly painful, but it does get to that point where it's like, look, I can't pretend to be something I'm not, and especially somebody like Dave, who seems to be so driven and so focused and so, you know, so keen to build his empire, and ironically, I would suspect that makes him more attractive to women, because this is a guy. I mean, look at Silvana. Look at how beautiful Silvana is, right? She's an Instagram model. She's incredibly hot. He's walked away from her. Okay, like how many guys would do that? Okay, the ability to walk away from a beautiful woman is really the highest hallmark of a great. I don't want to say it's like even say player really, because that kind of denigrates it. You know, that it's the mark of a guy who, I mean, he is so focused on whatever it is that he wants to achieve. You know, whatever it is he wants to mold the world in his own image. He's so focused on that he's prepared to forego the love of this absolutely stunning, beautiful woman and just walk away. You know, I mean, how many guys have the balls to do that? Not many. And this is why you get so many dudes, you know, then you get these guys crying on Twitter to me about, you know, oh man, you just get married, you know, blah, blah, blah. The reality is most dudes don't have the balls to do what Dave Portnoy did. Most guys in that situation would have just buckled and go, oh, well, she's hot. She's probably the best I can get. You know, I'm going to have to settle down at some point. Let's just go along with it. You know, and they would have gone along with it. Very, very few guys actually have the stones to say, listen, Silvana, I love you. You're beautiful. You're an amazing human being, but I cannot give you what you want. You need to go and find somebody else. Very, very few guys have the stones to do that. It's incredibly painful. It's incredibly difficult. It's incredibly upsetting. I think we can see that in Dave's face as we watch these interviews. But it is the right thing to do. It was the right thing to do for him, and it was the right thing to do for her. Very powerful. Anyway.
I also did a little bit of a Reddit deep dive, and obviously none of this is confirmed, but it's all interesting, and I wanted to share what I found. One person said she apparently drunkenly gave him a marriage and children in the next 10 years ultimatum, and he told her it just wasn't in his cards. And I saw this on multiple different threads, multiple different posts about a 10-year ultimatum. I think I also saw a TikTok where it was referenced. But anyway, going on, she didn't drop it, and he decided to end it as they were, quote, wasting time with each other when their life goals and plans don't align.
And there you go. And that is the crux of the matter. Now, again, as Brett said, that's not confirmed. We don't know if that's true. It sounds kind of plausible, doesn't it? She said, look, I'm 28 now. You've got until I'm 38, but I want kids. I want family. And basically he's going to be 56 then, which is not too young to be a parent, but it's, you know, I mean, as I say, we don't know. We don't know the reasons, and it's none of our business what the reasons are for Dave's reticence around this, but it just seems from the little that we can glean from this that his focus is just elsewhere. You know, he's building this company, he's building this empire. He's a very driven, ambitious individual, and it's just he's just not got this family mindset for whatever reason. And this is the kind of thing, as I say, the trads on Twitter will be berating. They probably are berating this guy, like, oh, what a loser, you know, your genetic legacy, blah blah blah. But I mean, for a start, they're idiots. And secondly, because all they've done is they've just folded, really, in the face of societal expectation and probably not wanting to forego the love of the woman that they're with, like Dave did, okay? Dave's taken the harder path here, but he's taken the path that appears to be true to himself, okay?
Somebody else posted on Reddit and said they have noticeably been spending time apart. I'm sure it's been over 4 days to a week, and she finally just broke down and said something. It could be related to being back at Barstool full time. Like I said, he bought back the company, but he's spending a lot less time in Florida despite the 6 months, 1 day requirement for living there and like establishing that as his residency. And obviously, this makes sense. He seemingly bought Barstool back on a whim this summer when the opportunity came back, and he has fully jumped back into the company. He's always filming videos with them. He's doing like the Barstool games right now. He's flying around to New York and to Chicago. And even though they moved in together in Miami this summer, he might not be spending a lot of time there. His priorities have probably shifted back to work now that he owns the company again. And
I mean, once again, it's interesting, and I wasn't actually I didn't expect actually my commentary on this to quite go in this direction. But watching this stuff back, it's interesting actually how unsimpy Dave's behaviour is in regard to Silvana, because once again, as Brett says, it seems like he bought Barstools back on a whim, right? It very much feels to me like he's a guy, he can't take a back seat. He can't just sit on a beach. He can't just say, okay, that's it, I'm done, I'm going to be a family guy now. He can't do this. And he was with a woman that would be coveted by 99.9% of dudes who watch this kind of content, who, you know, and just generally speaking, I mean, she's a very attractive, she's a hot girl, she seems to be very nice, you know, she's obviously got those family values. I've read a few other bits and pieces about her, you know, she's very intelligent, she's very well educated, she shares a lot about her family and so on and so forth. So she's ticking a lot of boxes here, okay? She's ticking a lot of boxes, plus she's 18 years younger than this dude, okay? But he's made a stand, he stood up and he said, listen, I'm sorry, I love you, I can't do this, okay? And I think that's an incredibly righteous thing to have done, but B, actually, when you think about it, I mean, what a Chad. Like how many dudes would do that? Really, most dudes would have just been like, Jesus Christ. I mean, like basically, go on the London Underground, guys. The bar for marriage is very low. Okay, I mean, we're not talking about the women that guys are wifing up in this city is extraordinary. So, I mean, somebody like Silvana, very few guys are going to pass that up. Dave did, okay, and that puts Dave, as I say, in the top elite tier of alpha chads on the fucking planet. Okay, not taking away anything from the emotionality of the event and the deep sadness that it must have caused both of them, because I think that's very real as well. But the fact that he was willing, and this is what bloody modern masculinity is missing, isn't it? Right? The ability to be like, okay, yes, she's beautiful, yes, I love her, but actually, ultimately, there's something more important in my life that I'm going to go for, and I'm going to have to break up with her. That is the ultimate. When you think about adventure movies, when you think about the hero, I was talking to James Tusk about this the other day. The hero at the beginning of the adventure movie doesn't say, oh, let's leave it for a few weeks because I want to snuggle with my wife a little bit more. The hero is going away to sea, leaving the wife. In some cases, the family is like, no, I've got to go on the mission. I might die. I might never see you again, but I need to do this because this is the right thing, okay? There's a very good reason why most superheroes are not married. There's a very good reason why James Bond has never been married, or at least he has been married, I think, but for very brief periods of time, and then, whatever, she ends up dying or something. It's because domesticity, it's because giving oneself over to domesticity as a man is fundamentally unmasculine. All right? I mean, I'm not saying having kids is unmasculine. Obviously, that's not true, but it's like surrendering to the female imperative, which is basically let's settle down, have a couple of kids, and we'll go to holiday. We'll go to Malibu on holiday a couple of times a year. Is not what Dave Portnoy wants to do. Clearly, Dave Portnoy wants to be out there making fucking moves. Okay, he's got that masculine spirit. He's got that drive. He's got that fire in his eyes. He's not ready to face the dying of the light yet. Okay, and good on him, man. Because I bet most of you guys wouldn't do that.
If the 10-year ultimatum thing is true, then she did dodge a bullet for her own life, because if that is what she wants and he could not commit or decide whether he wanted to do that, good, move on. Obviously, Like I said, breakups suck no matter which way the cookie crumbles, but now she actually has more time to find somebody whose goals are aligned with hers. Somebody commented and said, 10 years, LMAO, this was the best thing she could have done. Well, he did to her. If he can't even imagine taking one single step within the next decade, he absolutely doesn't want to be with her. He's probably been waiting for her to break up with him. And some people, like this Redditor, were putting the blame on him, saying he did this to her, he is so awful, he doesn't want to be with her, he did waste her time, just like this TikToker. Basically, she said, Dave Portnoy, you're too old to say you don't want to settle down, but then date Silvana for 3 years and lead her on. If you knew you didn't want to settle down, then you shouldn't have led her on for 3 years. Ask her to move in and buy her a G-Wagon.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the buying a G-Wagon, how that really comes into it, but this is the point of contention, isn't it? I mean, you could argue, was 3 years too long? If Dave knew this, was actually 3 years too long? Arguably, maybe it was. And I have to say, in my own life, because, you know, I was in this very similar situation that's being described here. I was with this girl for 3 years. And in hindsight, you think, well, actually, really, was that fair on her? And so now I'm much more circumspect about these things. You know, I haven't been in a serious relationship since, and I haven't sought to be in a serious relationship since because of this problem. Because what... And this kind of cycle has happened to me a number of times before. And what I don't want to do now is to get into a situation where I'm emotionally tied with somebody, and then we have to go through all of this, and that's going to be painful for me, but it's going to be painful for her as well. And also, I'm going to be doing the stealing her youth thing, you know, if she's younger than me. So, yeah, I think there's a question mark over the 3 years thing, but we live and learn. I mean, as I say, I don't imagine that any of this was planned. I don't think that people go into these things. I don't think Dave Portnoy was thinking, ha ha ha, I'll take 3 years, ha ha ha, you know, and it was this manipulative thing. I suspect what happened was they just got together. It was great. They kind of really enjoyed each other's company. They start to fall in love. They're having an amazing time, and they just kind of ran with it for a bit. That's kind of what happens normally with people, right? I mean, unless you're Matt Walsh, that's kind of how things normally go.
Like, grow up. After all of that, you better be leaving her the Miami house. I mean, she does have a point, because he is a 46-year-old man, and he should know what he wants and his expectations for...
Well, you say that, Brett. You say that, but... It's some of us are, I don't know, it's like, just speaking candidly, personally, I can see why Brett says that, but as a guy who's older than 46, I think it's very harsh. I think some people are more driven by different things in life. I think some people are more driven by maybe work and career and wanting to accomplish certain things, and they're not naturally maybe family types. They're not sort of sitting there thinking, oh, I can't wait until I got my 15 kids and all of that. And you've got that baseline. At the same time, I do think it's very... It's kind of quite harsh and quite final to say, right, that's it, I'm never going to, you know, I never want to do that. Because obviously, you know, obviously you can see the wonderful appeal in having kids. And I think, again, you know, I can't second guess for Dave. I don't know what his situation is at all. But it's sometimes, I think, difficult to completely close the door on that outcome. But at the same time, if you're not particularly inclined to it either, then you shouldn't force yourself to go in a direction that you don't want to go into.
Life. And maybe he did lead her on, and maybe he did waste 3 years of her life. But we also don't know what was said at the beginning of their relationship, because there is a good chance that she entered the relationship saying, you know what, that's not in the cards for me.
Well, yeah, no, Brett's right. And I would go further, and I would say they probably didn't discuss it at all. I would imagine. I mean, look, I could be wrong, but I suspect, as I said, what happens, I don't think they probably sat down and said, so, what do you want in 3 years' time? Dave Portnoy, do you want to have children? And he said, no. He said, yes, I do. Ha, 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 ha. And then he was, I don't think, I suspect they just got together and it kind of happened organically.
For me, I'll choose you over that. And then later on, changed her mind, and he didn't. We have no idea. But somebody commented and said, I love Sills, but Dave has probably been telling her this the entire time. She just thought that she could change his mind. Yes.
That is more plausible. That is, I think, more likely.
Especially when Dave Portnoy is so open about not wanting kids and not really being the marriage type.
Yeah.
Like, this shouldn't have been a surprise for her. So she probably knew what she was getting into. So if one person changed, I'm not trying to, like, point fingers, but it probably was her. She is younger. Maybe she changed her mind. Who knows?
Well, yes. I mean, she's younger, and she's now 28, right? So yeah, so she would have been, what, 25 when they got together or whatever. I mean, she has got a number of years older. She's not old by any means, but she is getting to that point where women start to think, well, the fertility window is not going to last forever, so I kind of need to get my ducks in a row with this stuff. And I suspect if she did make this ultimatum, it would have been influenced by that.
Another woman said, my take with all that's going on is that maybe Silvana in the beginning didn't want more. And as time went on and she's grown, she realized maybe she did want that, changed her mind. Somebody else said, I had a friend date a guy who was the same as Dave with the whole not wanting marriage or kids thing. She swore up and down that she could change him, but they ended up breaking up after 2 years because he wouldn't budge. I like Sil, but I wouldn't be surprised if she had the same I can change him mindset.
Yeah, it's quite possible. I mean, it takes two to tango. So either... yeah, I mean, it's pure speculation. We don't know what happened behind closed doors. It might be that he was very adamantly saying this stuff all the way through and she was kind of ignoring it. Equally, it could be that he was kind of fudging it and not allowing that to... Because you kind of know, if you're in that kind of relationship, you kind of know if we sit down and properly talk about this, this is going to be a deal breaker. We're going to have to break up because... and maybe he was kind of... Maybe as well, to be fair to him, maybe he was kind of thinking, well, let's see how this goes because maybe I'm going to change my mind. And then 3 years down the line, he realizes, well, actually, hang on a minute. To be honest, I still don't really want this. And at that point, he decided to cut his loss. So I think, as tempting as it is, I think we can't be too hard on either of them here because firstly, we don't know. And secondly, this isn't an algorithm, right? I mean, human relations and human emotions, I mean, it's a very complex thing. Very nuanced, and things do change over time.
Now, like I said at the beginning, all of this is just internet, celebrity, drama, and gossip. But per usual, we can learn things from these stories. Because again, the worst thing that you can do is waste your time or waste somebody else's time in a relationship.
I think she's right. And full disclosure, I think this is something that I have learned myself. I think it was a lesson, even at my advanced age. I think this is a lesson that I've had to learn over the last few years, and life has taught me this, and maybe this is something that Dave Portnoy is now learning as well. It doesn't excuse you completely, but it does take two to tango in these situations, and yeah, it's a complex thing, guys.
Especially a woman whose biological clock is ticking. And you shouldn't be wasting your time or energy on a person who can't make up their mind about you. It is a disservice to both parties. Somebody has to make a decision, but you should not go into a relationship or stay in one based on the assumption that you believe that they will change or that you can change them. Please learn from my parents. Do not do that. There is no reason to waste your...
What happened with their parents? I need to find out. That's interesting.
Precious time.
Forgive my ignorance on that.
Time on somebody who wants things that are fundamentally different than you or has fundamentally different values than you. Now, if all of this is true, if all of the gossip, if all the Reddit posts are true, then I do think that Dave did the correct and mature thing. Breakups suck, but he has given her the opportunity to find somebody who can give her the life that she has decided that she wants. And that's good for both parties. Thanks for watching this episode of the...
Okay, well, there you go. So that's the end of the video. Great breakdown, I think, from Brett Cooper there. That was really interesting. And as I say, watching that back, I mean, I agree with her. I think it, from what we know, I think he did the right thing. But equally, what a Chad, right? I mean, like as I say, I mean, how many guys would actually do that? How many guys would actually have the nuts to forego the love of a very beautiful, intelligent, family-orientated, accomplished woman? You know, like most guys would not walk away from that. Most guys would not have the strength to walk away from that. I'm telling you now, you know, and you can pretend to be an internet tough guy and say, no, I would. Yeah, man. You know, most guys wouldn't. And that's why most guys get married, really, because they don't want to deal with the breakup. to be completely honest. I mean, this situation, it's not unusual. You know, he's got into it. He's having sex with her. She probably thinks she's great, whatever. Then they're 3 years down the line. Suddenly the feels are involved. And now she's saying, well, Dave, we need to settle down. We need to have kids. And he's like, oh, shit, I didn't sign up for this. But most guys at that point would fold. And most guys would just go, okay, Silvana, let's just do it. It's fine. They're great. And then they go along with it. And then they would live a life of quiet desperation, having done something that really they didn't actually want to do in the first place. Now, that's not to say that they don't love their kids. That's not to say that they don't enjoy the extreme joy and the wonderful nature of having a child, of passing on one's genetic legacy of that progeny, you know, like having that life affirming experience. It doesn't take away from that, But was it really their first choice, or did they just do it because basically they were too much of a pussy to deal with the breakup, to deal with letting her go, and probably letting her go on to meet some other guy and end up procreating with him instead, and you're left there crying in your bedroom into a bowl of Weetabix. That's usually the reason why dudes get married. And then when they're on X and they're coming at me or they're coming at other people for speaking out against the trad narrative, they come out with all these insults and so on because they know secretly that actually that's what happened. You know, they weren't acting out of their own volition particularly. They were acting because they were afraid. They were acting out of fear because they were afraid to do something different from you know, they were afraid. Basically, they were with some girl. She put the thumb screws on. He's like, okay, fine. They caved in. You know, it happens. It happens. There's a few more comments here, so let's have a look at these before we finish. And by the way, any more comments, any questions, put them in the chat, and we'll deal with them. Chemistry doesn't care what age you are, says Nikki. Painful. I applaud him. It's incredibly difficult to walk away from the person you love. It really is. It really is. I can contest to that. Adam Simmons, I'm in my Pinot Noir era this weekend. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. Nikki, woe is you, Troy. Absolutely. Troy Francis, SJ says, bittersweet, cut her free in the loving and letting her go. So you're a poet. Yeah, I just, you know. And then Nikki says, is it evil or incredibly selfish? I think she's referring to what Brett Cooper was saying about it's evil to hold on to somebody. I think evil's a strong word, right? I think it depends on I know what she's saying, but I think it depends on the circumstances. I think if you're calculatedly doing it, and you're doing it for a very long time, i.e. 8 or 10 years, I think that is very, very bad. I think if you're with someone for 3 years, and then at the end of that you kind of say, hey, listen, I think we're running in different directions, and she's only 28, and she wasn't calling Dave Portnoy evil, but to be clear, but I think that is, I think that's okay. I think that's I think we can see okay, fine. So I think it's case by case. I think if you just deliberately were like, all right, to hell with you, I'm going to just be with you while you're young and beautiful, and then I'm going to discard you, and I don't care about your future. I think that is, yeah, in its worst form, that could be described as evil. But I'm not sure how often it actually comes about like that, if that makes sense. Because what if, just as a thought experiment, what if they were together for 10 years, and then they discover the guy is infertile, the guy can't have kids, so what then, right? That wasn't evil, it was just they didn't know. But the end result is the same. So, yeah, something to think about there anyway. SJ says, it reminds me of David Data, Way of the Superior Man. All-purpose and single-minded focus and still making room for an LTR, but knowing your true north, badass. Yeah. Rollo is screaming epiphany phase. About Silvano. Well, yeah, I mean, she probably, yeah, absolutely. I mean, she is in her epiphany phase. And I mean, all of the indications for this are that he ended it with her. And that seems to be what happened. I don't think anyone's contesting that. But I mean, there's always that small possibility that she basically pulled the plug or basically said, listen, you know, this has got to finish. And certainly the way it's being presented, it looks like he pulled the plug. He did the right thing. But either way, it was, on the basis of what we know, it was right that the relationship ended because they just fundamentally don't want the same thing. Or at least Dave can't commit to wanting the same thing as her within the next 10 years, which is effectively the same thing. This story I found really interesting. I like Brett Cooper. I thought that her breakdown was great. I quite like Dave Portnoy. As I say, I don't know a huge amount about him, but I've known about him for a few years. I find him quite an interesting character. And then when I delved into this a bit more, and I recognised the parallels between my own, you know, life situation with my ex and what's happened with him, and we're very similar ages. It's quite a powerful story, actually. It's brought up some emotion for me. It's made me reflect on this stuff, and I think overall, there's a lot of things to unpack here, isn't there? And I'm not going to do it now. We're going to finish in a minute, but there's a lot to unpack here. Like as I think Nikki sort of said, I mean, there's an issue with age gap relationships here to some extent, because if you're an older guy and you kind of, you're set in your ways and you know you don't really want what she probably wants down the line, that is an issue. And I think that you do need to take note, and you need to learn the lesson from something like this. And certainly, as I said, I mean, I learned a big lesson over the last few years about this stuff, and certainly it's made me much more reticent to get into a relationship in the first place, and certainly to have anything that becomes serious in that way, because as soon as it starts to become serious, you're 3 years down the line, you know, it becomes very difficult. It becomes very painful, very difficult for both parties to pull out of that, but you kind of have to, because you can't square that circle. Okay, so there you go. Anyway, loads to think about there. I'd be really interested to know what you think about the story and what you think about my take on it as well, so you can put that in the comments below. And that is it for the show. So we are going to be off now next week, I believe, because it's Christmas. So Merry Christmas, everybody. Have a fantastic Christmas Day and Christmas, period, really, Boxing Day and all that stuff. Don't drink too much, don't eat too much. Try and stay in shape, go down the gym, keep working on those abs and all of that good stuff. We are going to be back in the new year. We're going to be doing this show twice weekly, I think, initially, and maybe going up from there. We're going to be posting more content on this channel as well. There's going to be vlog videos. There's going to be various advice videos as well. Because, as I say, this channel is not just a reaction channel. This isn't just Troy Francis reacts to random videos of minor celebrities on the internet. We can talk about these things because we can learn a lot, as you've seen from today's topics. But fundamentally, this is about, okay, what's happening out there in the dating marketplace? How does one conduct oneself as an older guy or as a guy in general? And indeed, we want to help out women here as well a little bit too. So if you're a woman, you're looking for the right guy, you're fed up with the carousel of the dating marketplace, how do you get out of that? How do you find somebody that you actually like and will be in it with you for the long term, you know? Because Silvano as well, from her point of view, you know, she met this dude, probably really in love with him, and, you know, it didn't end too well. So there are issues on both sides, both the male and the female side. We aim to get to the bottom of them here on the Dating Game with Troy Francis. Have a wonderful Christmas. Do subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Hit the notifications bell so that you get notified when we put up new videos on here. There's going to be lots more content coming out going into 2024. Write a comment below. Let me know what you think about the story and my take on it. If you've got any other issues that you would like me to cover, any other stories, any other kind of stuff that's happening in the dating world you want to see covered on this channel, again, let me know. You can always email me, troy@realtroyfrancis.com. You can also get on my free email list. There is a link for it below in the description, so join that. Follow me on all the socials. So I'm on basically X and Instagram @realtroyfrancis, also on TikTok @realtroyfrancis too. I'll see you guys again very soon. Bye-bye.